Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to the Less is More podcast. I am your host, Chris Ray, and I am back, finally, after a break, for reasons that I will get into in a minute. This is a special episode that will be short in comparison to the last episode that was well over 2 hours long. It was actually more like 3 hours long. When I started this podcast, my goal was to talk to a wide variety of people about a wide variety of topics, but not to get too serious or to be too serious all the time, and to break it up with funny stories like the time I was in 4th grade and a kid named Maverick flew off of a tire swing and hit his balls directly on the pole that was holding the swing up. It sounds brutal, but I promise it was funny, at least when I was 10 or whatever age I was. It was so funny, in fact, I couldn't breathe for about 5 minutes. And it wasn't because he was in pain. It was because of the way that this mullet-headed 10-year-old flew through the air so chaotically and somehow landed so perfectly on that pole that he broke his fall with his balls. He was okay, by the way. I'm sure he's fine and has had like 12 kids or something. I mean, his name's Maverick. Come on. Probably doing okay. I still plan on having guests at some point, and honestly, I never thought anyone would want to hear me talk about myself, but I needed to get some things out there. Things have been difficult, and I'm not always the best at expressing my emotions, especially on a platform like this. But it's not about me. It's about anybody who has gone through or is going through difficult times. In this particular episode, I call it silent pain or invisible illness. Imagine you have no legs. Just bear with me for a minute. Imagine you have no legs and you're sitting at the bottom of a flight of stairs. Would anybody expect you to climb those stairs? It's an easy answer, no. Now imagine your brain without the ability to control itself with issues like depression, anxiety, fear, grief, or vertigo and dizziness. People expect you to climb those hypothetical stairs under these conditions simply because they can't see the illness and they don't understand what it feels like to have it. You can't just snap out of it. And you should never say that to somebody who is dealing with that. I was bullied as a kid, and I spent a great deal of my time trying to stay one step ahead of my bully. During the day, I couldn't turn this off. I couldn't, or I would get my ass kicked. But one thing I did have was my imagination. I imagined him sitting at home, which was only a block away from mine. I lived on one end of the block, he lived on the other. But I imagined him trying to figure out how he was going to get me the next day at school, because I was pretty good at getting away from him. While I was sitting in my room daydreaming about a faraway place filled with loving people who accepted you for who you were. The problem with mental illness is that it's like a bully that you can't get away from. You can't go home and fantasize about a world with no problems because it simply doesn't exist. Sure, you can meditate and block out the noise, but let's be honest, if you're anything like me, as soon as you close your eyes, that's when the circus starts. I can't shut it off no matter how hard I try. But I know deep down it's possible, so at least it gives me something to work on. The other issues with depression, anxiety, and dizziness are a tougher egg to crack. It's like trying to push a chain. You can try all day long, but you end up in the same place you started. It's easy to turn to alternative methods of treatment like drugs and alcohol, which Unless we're talking about meth or something equally as bad, then in moderation it's okay. But like Oscar Wilde once said, everything in moderation, including moderation. I love that quote. Some go the pharmaceutical route and find great success, while others only find failure. I'm at a place now with my illness where my symptoms are bad enough that I'm going to start a new medication with some pretty serious potential side effects. Some of them including hair loss, kidney stones, amnesia, confusion, nervousness, and all the reasons why I'm taking it in the first place, for dizziness and vertigo and nausea. It's a desperate attempt to get my life back. It's a lonely feeling that from the outside probably doesn't look so bad. Some might see working from home as something amazing, and believe me, it definitely has its perks. And I'm comfortable sitting in my home office, but the truth is, I didn't choose for this to be my reality every day. I miss my coworkers. I miss being out in the world and feeling good, not worrying about if I'm going to have a vertigo attack or get dizzy and spend a few hours throwing up like I did yesterday. That was my whole day yesterday. I was dizzy for about 7 hours and I threw up about 7 or 8 times. Sometimes I struggle to take my daughter to school in the morning or to pick her up afterward. But in many ways, it's the best part of my day. Listen, I know I'm not the only one, and there are many other people fighting their own battles that are worse than mine. I'm not special. I'm simply one of many asking themselves a simple question. Why me? It's something I find myself asking a lot, as if there's a voice that's going to speak up and answer the question. But the reality is, it feels like throwing a rock into a lake. It has very little impact on the world as a whole. It only impacts my world. And that fades away with the ripples made by the rock. I want to make an impact on the world in a way that doesn't just suit myself and my needs, but to help others as well. That's been my goal for a very long time. I just didn't know how to do it. Now that I do, the universe has decided it has other plans for me. I just wish I knew what those plans were so I could better prepare for the outcome and maybe have some control. Here's how I sum up what some of my issues are. But first, I would like to tell you a story about the last time I shit my pants. Which, by the way, and you don't need me to tell you this, but I will anyway, shitting your pants as an adult feels wrong on so many levels. But the last time this happened to me, I was at my girlfriend at the time's house in Bartlesville, where I grew up. She lived on the complete opposite side of town, which is a crucial detail of this story. By all accounts, it was a normal evening, and we were watching the first season of American Idol, when suddenly I felt a gurgle in my stomach, much like that scene in Dumb and Dumber when Harry is on his way to Mary's house after Lloyd put laxatives in his tea. But it passed. Well, for a minute. I used some deductive reasoning and weighed my options. I could stay and see who got voted off of a show I didn't care about, or head home early, or destroy my girlfriend's bathroom in a house quiet enough and within close enough proximity for the entire family to most likely hear the chaos that was about to ensue. For me, the choice was clear. I had to go. I made up some reason about being sick, but not like poo-poo sick. Just like I had a headache or something. I don't remember. But I got in my truck and settled in for the ride all the way across town back to my house. But when you have a bullet in the chamber with a fountain of diarrhea behind it just waiting for the go-ahead to fly out, I felt like I was about to drive across the Trans-Siberian Highway. But I took off as fast as I could, trying to distract myself in any way I could. So I turned on the radio just in time for the DJ to say, and that was Creed with a song off of their new album, Human Clay. Really? Human Clay? That's not the words you want to hear when you're trying not to poop your pants. That's a terrible name. And it may not have been a new album at the time. I don't know. Regardless, they were playing a song from an album called Human Clay. So gross. But I was doing everything I could just to keep it together. And I have to say that if clenching your butt cheeks together was an Olympic sport, I was well on my way to winning a gold medal at the shit Olympics. About 5 miles into the trip, I had to abort the mission and do some serious low-altitude bombing, if you know what I mean. It was not going to be pretty. I was fully aware of this. My house was just too far away, and I simply couldn't hold it. There was just no way. Then, all of a sudden, a little came out. Oh no, I'm freaking out. At this point, I'm freaking out because I know what the possibilities are. So I flew into the nearest gas station parking lot. I jumped out and I ran in to use the bathroom because I was about to lose it completely. At this point, I'm sweating, I'm panicked, and as I walk in, the cashier greeted me, and as I was saying hello back, I farted. Leaving behind what had to have smelled like a mixture of old broccoli and roadkill. They had to have been talking to me when I was in the bathroom, or talking about me. I finally made it to the bathroom, did what I needed to do, and got out as quickly as possible without my underwear and probably weighing about 5 pounds lighter. It's situations like this that we all try to avoid, but sooner or later we'll experience something like it. Maybe it's less messy, but still uncomfortable nonetheless. In this case, I had a good reason to leave, but in many cases, people who are struggling with things internally will try to find any reason to leave that situation. In my case, I'm afraid it will set off an attack. And by attack, I mean vertigo or dizziness and tons of anxiety. If I go to the grocery store, I'm triggered by so many different things. Fluorescent lighting is one of the worst. Sounds, smells. Just knowing that I'm in there, and if I were to have an attack, how terrible it would be. How embarrassing it would be. My mind tends to go straight to the worst case scenario. Many people do this every day, but because you can't see what they're thinking, it's hard to understand. So we make up a lie to get out of it as quickly as possible. I tell this story because it makes me laugh, but having a chronic illness means you can feel this level of panic at moments throughout your life when there is no reason to. Normal everyday activities can be extremely overwhelming and exhausting and give you the same sense of urgency to change your environment as I had in this particularly shitty evening. We all react differently to these situations that life throws at us. You know, I felt as though I couldn't hold on any longer. But as ridiculous as that story is, I sometimes think about it and remind myself that it's okay not to always be in control. It doesn't mean you're weak. And it's not your fault. Because sometimes shit happens. Sometimes you fly through the air like Maverick did and have a pole abruptly break your fall. Sometimes you get bullied. Sometimes you have no legs looking up at a flight of stairs, and sometimes nothing is happening at all, but yet in your mind you feel like it is. We may never understand why this happens to some of us, but that doesn't mean we should stop trying. So, those are my thoughts for the day. Thank you for listening, and I'll leave you with this one last thing. I wanted to talk about all this stuff and, throw in a funny story, because I don't want this podcast to just be so heavy all the time, and that's not how I set out for it to be. But like I said, the universe had a different plan for me, and hopefully after I start taking this medication that it'll get me back to a place to where I can do what I was planning on doing. But right now I'm taking things just one day at a time. I don't want to be defined by my weaknesses. I want to be defined by how I overcome them. And if you are struggling with something in your life, don't give up. Push as hard as you can and try not to metaphorically shit your pants. But know that if you do, it's okay. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. And today is a gift. There's an old band that I used to listen to called Taproot, and that was, I think, on one of their album covers, and it always stuck with me. That's all I have for today. Like I said, it's a shorter podcast, and if you're still listening, you have no idea how much I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and have a good day.